In the aftermath of the Skrull invasion, when Norman Osborn took over the 50-state initiative, the Thunderbolts, S.H.I.E.L.D., and pretty much reformed all governmental sanctions in his own image, the downfall of the modern-day superheroes began, allowing for villains and anti-villains to rise up in their positions and take the lead. Some people might be able to tell that I, on this channel, do tend to like darker stories. I do like it when villains have the upper hand, and this is another Marvel story that I was very fond of when I read it back in the day. And it's actually one of the last Marvel series, if not the last Marvel series I ever read. You also know on this channel, when there is a group that Marvel has that DC does not technically have, I'm going to try and build them up in a DC universe. Thematically, DC might have similar teams, but they are certainly not the same character-wise or operations-wise. The Suicide Squad might be a close representation, or the Crime Syndicate from Earth 3, which is just their evil counterparts. This is the opportunity of other characters who have fought the Justice League in the past, who have been formidable foes, to take on the mantle of some of these other characters and operate like them, just with a couple of differences, maybe being a little more violent and a little more unhinged, but still showing the public, the people of the world, that they do fight for the side of good, all while having a darker background, ulterior motive by their leader. So to keep this video a decent length and runtime, I decided to go with 10 characters that I will showcase and discuss on my options. The first thing we do have to look at is who would be the leader of this group, and I think we could easily say that Lex would be the Norman Osborn of this team. However, I'm going to change it up a little bit and actually make it Lex Luthor and Maxwell Lord who are in cahoots with this plan, who have teamed up together, devised something very strategic in which a dark Justice League must exist. Could two egotistical, antagonizing minds like Lex and Max exist side by side with one another? Without getting into detail, I really don't know. I think that would need to be a very well-rounded story that you'd have to write for these two characters to get along. Something like this screams Maxwell Lord to me. A Justice League within his image alongside Lex Luthor without the appearance of the real superheroes feels like it is something he would fund. Now, a lot of the characters I decided to use as the substitutes for the Justice League need to be morally misguided. I don't want to say are gullible, but they can potentially be misled, or they can be convinced by Lex Luthor to take a job like this, to do something that maybe certain villains would have never thought of doing. Lex and or Maxwell Lord would be wiping or hiding some of these criminal past, and they would also have to, of course, hide within the identity of these Justice League characters. And convincing some people to do this would maybe be a little easier said than done, so there would have to be some payoff for them. So the first one we're going to look at is the Dark Justice League character for Superman. For him, I either have Lex Luthor or Eradicator. Whether or not Lex is the leader of this entire thing, or whether he is sharing power alongside Maxwell Lord, I think Lex would be a suitable character for this team as the Superman role, potentially. However, he could not wear his technical Superman armor suit. He would have to wear a completely new concoction, or he would have to wear what we usually see him in, the green and purple suit. We do have to realize that if Lex is going to be on this team, he's going to show his face to the world. He is not maybe the most ethical man in the eyes of the public, so you can't really convince people by having him just show up in a Superman suit and be like, I'm your new Man of Steel. Or you could do it where Lex is part of the team alongside Eradicator, and really what you would have to do is make Eradicator look a little more similar to Kal-El, and maybe you could simply play off this idea. This is the new Superman look. This is his new suit. Because even when you look at the Dark Avengers, you have Venom impersonating Spider-Man using the symbiote. So the suits don't need to be exactly the same. The way that Lex and/or Max could play this off is that it is a new era. It is a new generation for these heroes without the public actually knowing who is behind the masks. But at least with Eradicator, you could still make him very similar or even exactly the same as Kal-El, which could make people think that Kal-El is still around as Superman even though it's not him. So there's a couple options you could do here. You could have it where Lex is the Superman role. You could have it where Lex is not necessarily part of the actual team and it is Eradicator taking the Superman role. Or you could do it where both are part of the team, and whereas Eradicator has the appearance of Superman, Lex actually has the leadership of Superman. For Batman, there's two choices as well. I went with either Deathstroke or Red Hood. Personally, I would side with Deathstroke, but for those who want to picture Red Hood as Batman, it could definitely work considering he would literally be a dark version of Batman. Once again, if the point is to be a Justice League, but to operate maybe a little more violently, that's right up his alley. And you're keeping it within the Bat family. So truthfully, whether he's operating as Batman, right or wrong, it is a Bat family member who is taking up the mantle of Batman. But the reason I would go with Deathstroke is because his physical superiority matches Batman's. He also has a lot of his own gadgets. He has some technological knowledge and has a strategic mindset as well. Realistically, a Deathstroke-inspired Batsuit would look really awesome. Or to ensure that he blends in a little bit more, you could give him a full-on Batsuit, maybe something Bruce Wayne would create, but it still has its own flair to being someone different, but to the eyes of the public, they won't know. Once again, Lex and/or Max would convince Deathstroke, obviously the pay's gonna be good, and if the pay's good, he'll take the job. Maybe to call to his inner feelings, you could prove that you are a better Batman than Bruce Wayne. You could prove that you've always been more suited for any role that Batman ever thought he would have been suited for. So maybe you could speak to Slade's more personal inhibitions. I also have two options for Wonder Woman, and that would be Big Barda and Artemis. For Big Barda, I think you could do something really crazy where maybe Darkseid does have contact with Earth and has struck a deal with either Lex or Maxwell and has sent Big Barda to Earth to become the new Wonder Woman. We all know that Barda is not a villain, and if she is, she's not a villain for long, so maybe her time on this team would allow her to see through the facade that Lex and Max are putting up, and that she would eventually leave this team. Just the way that the impersonator for Captain Marvel in Dark Avengers eventually left as well. Artemis has always struck me as a character who travels around and is trying to find her true calling, her true purpose, and this could definitely be something that's right up her alley, and maybe she could even think to herself that I am being asked to be part of a new Justice League team. You could even play off an idea that maybe she's part of this team as a spy. He's always the callback for this character, but maybe Batman, the real Batman, Bruce Wayne, is behind the scenes. He knows something is very off about what's going on, and he sends Artemis into the team to be the new Wonder Woman, while she also gives information to Batman on what is going on. Both options are great options. Big Barda is a new god, and as long as you want to make Wonder Woman a demigod, there is a connection right there. Artemis is an Amazonian warrior. Both of them, in fact, are very worthy warriors. Big Barda was part of the Female Furies. Artemis has acted as an antagonist to Wonder Woman before, so you can't go wrong with either of them. With the Flash, there's also two options here. We have Reverse Flash, or Eobard Thawne, and Godspeed. Now, the biggest problem with Eobard Thawne is the whole time travel aspect, and I've said before in other videos that he is so stupidly powerful, and I think his mindset does not work well with others. I don't really see him being a character who would naturally work with other characters that I don't know if he would fit here. The only way that Lex could get him to join the team is, well, first of all, if something happened within this universe's timeline that is allowing Reverse Flash to predominantly exist within the same timeline as Barry Allen, and for him to maybe tell him that your goal has always been to mess with Barry and ruin his life in any way. Maybe you could continue to ruin his life by being him and being better than him. Even though I made him an option instead of using Eobard Thawne all the time, I'm gonna go with Godspeed as my main choice. August Hart has enough of a personal and work-related connection to Barry Allen. I think both of them know each other well enough. I think Godspeed is very, very powerful, and I think he is also another speedster who wants to prove that he is the best Flash of them all, that he is the one who deserves that honorary title. Being the Dark Justice League Flash would be a big interest to him so that he could finally prove his worth and also prove why he is the best speedster of any speedster in existence at that time. For Green Lantern, this was both the hardest and the easiest one. So this could be dependent on either Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. It doesn't matter. I would go with Sinestro. The biggest problem with Sinestro is he is an alien. That is a dead giveaway. You could do a situation where he is simply just wearing a mask, or the Lantern's Light also has illusion casting, and it is very, very specifically detailed and could potentially allow Sinestro to get away with anything. That would require a lot of concentration, constantly ensuring that when he is around the people of Earth, that he always looks like Hal or John, so it would probably be best if he was wearing some sort of mask. Also, the color choice. If you don't want to, you could probably just keep him as a yellow ringed lantern, or if there is a way that he could maybe fake the color of yellow being green, or even find a way to dominate a green ring, then he would have to use that ring. It's really all dependent up to the writer of the story on how you would handle the color change. However, with Sinestro, convincing and or manipulating him to join this team might be a little difficult. I don't think he cares in the slightest about what happens on Earth, so whatever connects him to this team would have to be obviously relating to the Green Lanterns in Hal and or John. For Martian Manhunter, I have two options. You either go with Malefic or Clayface. If you go with Malefic, you are literally going with his brother, and there is not much hiding of the character that you would have to do in the first place, considering even if Malefic does not look like his brother much, or if his body type isn't similar, if his costume isn't the same, he could simply just morph himself and transform himself into anything to literally look like the exact same Martian Manhunter if that's what they wanted to go for. And the exact same thing I just said goes for Clayface as well. The only differences with these two characters is that Malefic has much more of an understanding on the actual persona and the powers and abilities of Martian Manhunter, and whereas Clayface can mimic some of his powers, he can't do everything because it's a much safer option, and I do believe it would work far better for the story. I would go with Malefic. For Dark Justice League's Aquaman, it's Orm. I did consider Black Manta, but I think Orm would have much more of a better reason on joining this team, finally being able to take the mantle of his brother and casting his brother to the side. Orm would probably have to wear some sort of mask or helmet to hide the fact that he is not necessarily Arthur. There might be some question on his trident, considering his looks different than Aquaman, but that's all visual details, and I don't know how much importance that would be for a lot of people. They also have basically the exact same powers. Now, just kind of adding on to a main 7 Justice League, with Green Arrow, the easiest answer is Merlin. All this guy has to do is keep the hood on and maybe wear a shade of green, not black, even if it's a dark green, and I'm pretty sure he could get away with it. Now, for Black Canary, this one was quite a tough one. I ended up on Silver Banshee taking over her role. Here were the couple of options I had. There was Catwoman, Selena Kyle, who could body-wise look like her, but no powers. There's Lady Shiva, who could once again body-wise look like her and physicality actually fight like her, but once again, does not have the powers. I even wanted to go with Black Siren, but unfortunately she is from Earth 3, and unless there is a situation where in this world the crime syndicate has already come to the Prime Earth, well, maybe you could go with her if that's the case, but I just went with Silver Banshee because even though she does not fully look like her in any way, she definitely has the screaming ability that she has. She's definitely gonna need to wear a different suit, and she's probably going to need some sort of mask, unless Lex and Maxwell Lord wanted to say this is some stylish new rebranding for Black Canary. And then last for this video, but certainly not least, for the character of Shazam, Captain Marvel, I went with Black Adam. Yes, I know they have 2 lightning bolts on their chest. I know they pretty much have the exact same powers, but their suits do look different, especially in color scheme. I don't necessarily know how Black Adam would be a confident and convincing replacement, at least in appearance wise, for Captain Marvel, but the idea I think still stands, and even convincing him to join the team, you could potentially have some sort of promise that would allow easier and better public relations between the rest of the world and Kahndaq, and this could allow trading for goods and resources and many other things to benefit Kahndaq and whatever Lex and Max have planned. So there it is, DC's Dark Justice League. Now, I think this is a very interesting idea. I think there could be a lot more details going into the choices for all these characters. I think the story could be very interesting as well, especially if you do have both Maxwell Lord and Lex Luthor at the head of the operations. The discussions and the emotions of characters who do know that the Dark Justice League is their villains posing as them, basically taking their job, would be quite interesting. So you guys let me know in the comments below what your choices would be for all of these characters and maybe other characters I didn't mention in the video. But that is it for this one, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.